And it's the following. In North Africa, what were vulgarly called the Barbary states at the time, that's to say the North African member states of the Ottoman Empire, today's Algeria, Libya, Tunisia, and Morocco, we estimate, Linda Colley's book, Captives, is one of the best resources for you to read here if you wish, between, say, about 1650 and about 1830, approximately 1.75 million European and Americans were captured, kidnapped on the high seas by the navies of the Ottoman Empire and taken into slavery. It extended quite a long way. It wasn't just guarding the Straits of Gibraltar and the Pillars of Hercules, the approaches to the Atlantic, and taking ships and their crews, though that was done very often, and their passengers. But raids as far north as the town of Baltimore in Ireland, the whole of whose population was carried off in one night into slavery by Muslim slavers in the late 17th century, and many towns in Devon and Cornwall, as far north as Iceland, this trade, shameful trade, went on. And it started to attack the United States as well as soon as it became independent. And Mr. Jefferson went to see the ambassador of Barbary in London, he himself at the time being ambassador in Paris. He went with John Adams. He said, by what right do you do this to Americans, American ships, people, civilians? By what right do you take them and imprison them and enslave them? The United States has no quarrel with you. We've signed a treaty with Tripoli saying we're not a Christian country. We took no part in the Crusades. We took no part in the Reconquista, the reconquest of Andalusia. We've never been and are not your enemy. The ambassador Abdurrahman replied to him in London, in Grosvenor Square, said, our Quran gives us the right to do it. The Quran gives us the right to make slaves of any infidel who doesn't recognize the rule of our prophet and the rule of our empire, and to demand tribute from them if we are so generous as to withhold this policy, is to refrain from it. And at this point, Mr. Jefferson decided that means war. The existence of this policy is incompatible with the existence of the United States. A navy will be built, a Marine Corps will be founded, we will send a fleet, we will put down this trade. And we will not just put down the slave trade, but we will force a passage through Gibraltar, allowing free trade for every other country between the Atlantic and the Mediterranean. That is the birth of America as a superpower. The very thing that every liberal considers to be the most degraded kind of imperialism now. The very triumph, in other words, of Enlightenment ideas and free trade ideas in combination that gives rise to the idea of Jeffersonian, as we call it, democracy. Not very many people have their names coterminous with democracy, have a democracy named for them. Mr. Jefferson is one. We should all be so lucky. So I just wanted to make this point, among others, and to say that my investigations into this argument, and also to my companion book on this, on the American founding and on the original ideas of 1776 and the American Revolution, suggest very powerfully and very strongly to me that the American Revolution is the only revolution left standing. To round off what Nick has said about the ultimate discredit or exhaustion or implosion or negation of the Chinese Revolution of 1948, the Soviet Revolution of 1917, the Cuban Revolution, now in its final parodic stages of decay, the investments in illusory utopia in which so many of the left have put their trust in the past, and the way in which men like George Galloway, now looking still for a fatherland of totalitarianism that they can adopt, now say openly what I suspected them of thinking. They now say openly, well, the proletariat may have died out on us, but we still have Islam as the revolutionary force, the force that opposes the bourgeoisie, opposes imperialism and capitalism. Get ready for this to be the prevailing illusion. Well, it will be combated by the only democratic and humanist revolution that still has validity, that still could be a model for other countries in the separation of church and state, a written constitution, a separation of powers, and a free market. There are not many countries I can think of that don't have those things that would not be better off with them, including our own, still ludicrously run by a monarchy that is the head of the church as well as the head of the state and the armed forces. Could anything be more ludicrous than that? and whose slobbering, chinless Dauphin has told us that he wishes to be the head of the Muslim worshippers in this country, as well as the deluded Anglicans who follow his reign. That's what it's like to come back to England for me, to find all that still going on and getting worse. Well, need I say more? You've been warned. You've seen what anti-Americanism leads to. It leads to the worship of what I wouldn't hesitate to call fascism. It leads to a masochistic attitude to our own democracy and our own civilization. It leads to an over-privileging of the most dismal, reactionary, and backward ideas of all, the ideas of religion. Thank you.